Hello everyone, welcome to Analog IAS Current Affair Analysis for 23rd January 2021. In this video, we'll be discussing this couple of very important issues which can be asked for prelims, mains, and this second article is particularly important even for your essay exam, considering the fact that in today's pattern of UPSC mains, essay is slightly inclined towards the philosophical concepts. So this is a very philosophical concept. So please pay attention in this particular video. The cost of guaranteed MSP. So in the wake of the farm bills, the farmers' demand has been mainly twofold. First one is about repealing the farm bills because they feel that it would take away the guarantee that they have at present, and secondly, they wanted to legalize MSP. MSP is not a legal mandate of the government, but it is rather a policy priority for most of the state governments along with the center. So MSP is declared for certain number of crops. What is the cost involved? We'll be looking into this issue in this article. So the reason why minimum support price came into existence was because way back in the early 60s, India was depending on a program called PL 480, or it is also called the Food for Peace program by the US. And since we were dependent on the US has a lot of times, like in the case of say Vietnam War, asked India to support US, and if we denied, the strategic autonomy was taken away, and they have cited lack of support as a reason to unofficially say that we would be not giving you the grains under this PL 480 program. So this has led to the green revolution, and in order to encourage farmers to take up this new technology of high yielding varieties, the government in early 60s and late 60s has actually introduced this MSP system in certain states. Later, after it was proving to be very economical for a lot of farmers, especially in the area of Punjab, the area under which this paddy and wheat, where MSP procurement was happening, significantly increased. Now, this has distorted the system in the favor of wheat and rice, which were considered to be water guzzlers. And eventually, over a period of time, MSP has become such a very important electoral tool that the government bought more and more number of crops under the ambit of MSP. So let us have a look at the mechanism under which we'll have MSP. There is CACP, which actually decides the MSP price and recommends it to the government, and Cabinet Committee on Economic Affairs will eventually take a decision on whether to accept this recommendation or not. And presently we have around 23 crops for which CACP comes up with a recommendation. So in this 23 crops, we also have one crop, that is sugarcane, for which the fair and remunerative price is first recommended by the Department of Food Distribution, and then CACP looks at that recommendation and gives that recommendation to Cabinet Committee on Economic Affairs, and then the fair and remunerative price for sugarcane is taken into consideration. Apart from this, there are also two other crops for which MSP is considered. In total, there are 25 crops. Please note that in this article, it is mentioned that 23 crops will get minimum support price, but as per the policy documents, it is 25 crops. The other two are dehusked coconut, which is again a byproduct of another agricultural product, and then we have Toria. So these are also given a certain MSP as per the policy. So what is the cost incurred on this? This article has done a statistical analysis and arrived at a cost of 10 lakh crores that would be needed for MSP. But again, we have to consider that this entire 10 lakh crores is not the cost incurred. So let us understand certain basic logics here and how the calculations have been arrived at. In reality, the fair and remunerative price is just recommended by the government, and it is actually the sugarcane mills owners who pay this fair and remunerative price to the farmers. Now, in the debate to legalize this MSP, what are the options available with the government? Firstly, either the government can force the private player to buy the entire produce at this MSP, or it can actually buy the entire agricultural produce by itself. Even if we remove the existing FRP, that is sugarcane, out of the ambit, the amount would be not less than 8 lakh crores. So, from the present examples, we have noticed that the government need not completely procure the entire produce to ensure that market prices does not fall. One has to be clear with the objective of MSP. Is it not to raise the market prices? Now, when it is the objective of the government to raise the market prices so that at least a certain amount of money is obtained to the farmer, what is the need to procure the entire produce? That is the logic. So let us assume that a significant amount of the produce, we have subsidized rates under the National Food Security Act, and the losses under this are already borne by the government because they look at it as a social welfare measure. Economically it might be a loss, but socially it is a plus point because we don't want a country that is starving. However, if we take a look at the costs involved, even if we procure a small amount, the amount arrives at around 1.15 lakh crores. So this is not a big amount. So why are we worried? Why can't the government ensure that we procure this produce at MSP so that market prices don't fall down beyond a percentage? The real problem starts here. Under the MSP, we only have certain cereal crops and certain pulses and oil seeds, but we don't have horticultural crops, or we don't have milk under MSP system. So if you take a look at the gross value addition, that is the amount that agricultural sector can produce, milk and horticultural crops form a very significant aspect. Horticultural crops means our food crops, like say for example tomato, onion, etc. If we start giving minimum support price for these products also, the cost will significantly stay higher itself, and it is literally impossible for the government to keep on procuring tomato, onion and potato. We can only ensure a price stabilization happens. So in the budget of 2016, Operation Greens was announced with a price stabilization fund of 500 crores to ensure that the prices of tomato, onion and potato, which are considered to be very important for us, stay very in a affordable range. But that did not actually take off. Similarly, we have to take a look at the case of milk. Milk is one of the largest consumed item in our country. We are also the largest producer of milk. However, ensuring MSP for prices will make it unaffordable for the consumer. And also, we have seen various instances where, because of procurement of wheat, our export competitiveness has actually come down. So, exports become much more costlier for the importers, and they prefer grains from countries like Australia. We have stiff competition from Australia, and sometimes even countries like Thailand compete with us in certain products like rice. So, considering all these facts, isn't it wise to leave it to the market? But at the same time, we also have to ensure proper regulation. Now, what is the regulation that we should zero upon should be the ideal debate. However, that debate is not happening, and it will not change the scenario because MSP cannot be a sustainable solution for farm price discovery somewhere down the line. That is the gist of this article. A pick between dark politics or collective resistance. So, this is in the context of what happened in Washington, D.C. in the wake of violence in America's capital, Washington, D.C., when Trump instigated his supporters, and there was an ugly scene at the Capitals and White House where lot of supporters have tried to delegitimize the election result. They were very insistent on ensuring that Trump stays in power. They believed that the election was rigged, and the scenes were pretty ugly that actually turned the entire world's attention to the largest democracy. Largest not in the terms of numbers, that would be India. Largest democracy in the size and the influence it has over world politics. So, this article is not just about that particular incident, but about the efficacy of democracy. Is democracy really the best form of government? Sometimes people wonder. What do you understand by democracy? We know the famous definition of the ex US president, that is, a form of government of the people, by the people, for the people. And if you take a look at the definition, what is the aspect that is most striking? The third one, by the people. Participation of the public or people is considered to be the most significant aspect of politics. Now, of late, we have been witnessing a trend across the world that political participation by the people has been increasing rather than decreasing. But the other facet of this phenomenon is the fact that it is leading to a lot of divisive forces. Divisive forces are taking over politics. So the rhetoric has been divided into you versus me. So this is not a healthy trend for a democracy, because if you take a look at any society that is democratic, it is never a homogeneous society. Now one might argue that when people like Donald Trump actually takes over international politics or offices that have prominent significance in a country as well as global politics, what can be expected from people like him? So homogeneous forces can have one sort of a society where they will pick the best leader that they deserve. But in non-homogeneous countries, like most of the democracies are non-homogeneous. Take for example a multicultural country like US. Similarly, India is also a multicultural country. We cannot impose our beliefs on the entire section of the country. So there is a possibility that in order to win over the words, divisive forces and divisive politics and divisive rhetoric comes into existence. So the question that by the people, which is considered to be one of the most important facet, itself becomes a danger for the survival of democracy. Because if we allow people who are filled with hatred, who are instigated by people who are power hungry, what is the kind of expectation that it would set for a society and future generations? So what will be the example that this trend exhibits for the future is the question being asked. So another rhetoric that began is that democracy is therefore an inefficient form of government. Now the question comes, what is an alternative? People say that there should be meritocracy. Just like how caste system exists in India, across the world there might not be specific name for that system, but discrimination always exists. Whether it is in the form of ethnicity, whether it is in the form of skin color, whether it is in the form of race, all kinds of hierarchical structures exist in a society. Not just Indian society, but across the world. Now, what is the antidote to this? Ironically, when people say that we have to move away from democracy and towards meritocracy, where few people are ruling the government because of the efficiency they have, then it will lead to slowly a degrading society, as history tells us. Because if you take a look at Hitler's entry, how did Adolf Hitler take up the leadership of Germany? After the World War, we have seen that World War One, we have seen that Germany's economy was at an all-time low, and it was severely losing out a lot of jobs. The people were in despair, and it is in this scenario that Hitler came forward, revived the economy, built the nation's pride. So it is completely acceptable till this point that meritocracy has survived. But what happened later? It is the same trend of divisive politics where entire population was homogeneously treated. What happens in that such scenario? The history has already told us the answer. It has Hitler has been a very significant force in the Second World War, and he stood as a historical example as to how we should not subvert systems in favor of one community or against one community. So this divisive politics is never sustainable. What is the way forward then? It is in this context we have to understand the idea, a very famous phrase. There is a thinker called A.E. Smith. This particular quotation by A.E. Smith can also be used in your essays. All the ills of democracy can be cured by more democracy. What this quotation signifies is the fact that the third component of the definition given by Abraham Lincoln, that is people's participation or by the people, is never going to be taken away from the basic tenet of democracy. Because if people's participation is taken away and meritocracy is believed to be the right form of government, history has always given us enough examples to show that it is a very bad precedent. Now, what is the significance of this statement by A.E. Smith? Today, we might have a sort of a system where a certain segment of population has hijacked the system, but it also uh, brought to the light that if people are not participating politically, others will rule for them. So, in the case of America, if the Republican Party and the Democratic Party, now the party in power is the Democratic Party, led by Joe Biden. If people did not come out in numbers to react and vote for the Democratic Party, Trump would have been the president again. How did we understand this in the present context? We might be having divisive politics, but unless and until we give an opportunity for the opposition to express themselves politically, we might not be able to address the problems that these violent forces can bring in to a democratic recourse. So, all the ills of democracy can be cured by more democracy alone. This is the gist of this article. So, I've added some other elements and tried to reorganize the content in such a way that it is relevant and understood by everyone. So, that is the gist of this article, a very important idea.